My name's Tyler.
And I'm Aiden.
And this is the Future Founders Podcast, where we talk to local business owners to see how they started, struggles that they had, and any advice that they can give to future entrepreneurs.
So today we have Sarah from Clay Cup. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. We just wanted to take a dive into the mind of a local business owner.
My mind.
Yes.
This is a scary place, you know. Are you sure about this?
So let's start off by what got you into business.
Oh, how much time do we have? I had the idea for the Clay Cup when I was in high school.
Okay.
And that's a whole story on its own.
Sure.
But even going out of high school, I thought, maybe I need to get a degree. That's kind of what I was pushed to do.
Right.
And I only did 3 semesters and then I dropped out, which ended up being probably one of the best decisions of my life. And then I just had the mindset of take every opportunity that I can, get as many experiences that I can, figure out what I'm good at doing, what I really want to do, what I'm not good at doing, what I really don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then hopefully one thing will lead to the next. And it really did. I went from working random jobs that had nothing to do with coffee or art to then opening the Clay Cup. But in that time, all those experiences really did lead into that. So
Sure.
I had the opportunity to buy a business that already existed, and I multiplied it by 5, and then that made it possible for me to open the Clay Cup.
So I was unaware that you had purchased the business. So what was it before? I assume
That
it
was
was
a different
coffee
business
shop.
that I sold. It was,
Okay.
So I purchased, it's Playtime Pottery in Hollidaysburg.
Okay,
It still exists. And it's just a paint your own pottery studio. But I had, in my kind of search for figuring out what I really wanted to do,
Sure.
I had approached the previous owner of that business and said, hey, let me come in here and teach some painting classes. People can bring wine. I'll teach it step by step. And it was the paint and sip classes before anyone else in the area was doing it. This was in 2014.
Okay.
And we organized that and I started teaching them. And then about 6 months into that, she's like, I think I want to sell this business. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, do you now?
Yeah.
Pick me, please. I'd love to, own a creative business. And I bought it and realized it was failing. And so I worked really hard that first year that I owned it and multiplied it by 5.
Wow. Now what led you to multiply it by 5?
So
What did you do internally that?
it was just me. I didn't have any employees at the time.
Okay.
And basically I taught as many painting classes as I could because they were selling out really fast.
Okay.
And Facebook at that time wasn't as saturated as it is now, so I was
Sure.
able to really the live Facebook videos and sharing about what we were doing, that really got the word out. And then just word of mouth. I would fill up classes to 25 people. I was teaching 5 classes a week. Those people go tell their friends they had a great time,
Oh yeah.
and one thing led to the next.
That's awesome.
So how did you go about getting the loan? Did you get a loan to buy the business? Or because I know that's one of the first things people do is, hey, I don't have money to buy this business or start it.
Financing is always the biggest question for people. And for me, when I bought Playtime Pottery, it was not bringing in that much revenue, so it wasn't worth that much. And I did it very unconventionally. I went and got a personal line of credit and bought it that way. I never had a business loan or anything. And then I didn't have a business loan when I opened the Clay Cup either because I worked my ass off and saved up as much cash as I could and then just did some other personal loans, and that's what I used to open the Clay Cup. I didn't get a business loan until I went to buy the building that the Clay Cup is in.
Okay.
So you don't rent that?
No.
Oh wow. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I thought all of those businesses downtown I thought all of the properties were already owned by. Well, you hear a lot about downtown being
Yeah.
owned by Californians and
Yeah.
Floridians.
No,
and-
I bought it about 6 months after we opened.
Okay.
And then I also financed my other business, self-financed Westfall Coffee Company.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about too, because whenever Heritage Pizza was looking for a grant, I forget who I was talking to, but I heard your name got brought up in applying for the grant, and you actually funded your coffee roaster through that. Very
okay.
genius. So I wanted to ask you, was that grant the kickstart to Westfall Coffee? Or was it
No,
already
I
in
had
the
already
works?
purchased it.
Okay,
And this
okay.
was like a reimbursement for
Okay,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that if you, if it was new after the grant came out, or if it was already pre-existing.
Yeah, no, I had basically already started the business, and then that grant kind
Okay.
of like reimbursed.
So what's the reasoning for a separate company?
Aside from the clay cup.
Yes.
Okay, this is a good question. So the clay cup is very much based around that space and coffee and artwork and just people connecting together in that space.
Sure.
And the roasting company, Westfall Coffee Company, has so much more scalability and profitability
Sure.
than the clay cup on its own. And I could have, been roasting under the name the clay cup, but that just, I wanted to create a brand that was done really, really well. The clay cup is fine, but it's kind of like one of those things where you look back and you're like, oh, I was like just starting out and I threw
Yeah,
it
sure.
together and I could have done a much better job. And so the building that we're in was built in 1890, and it was originally Westfall that was in there, which was men's haberdashery. It was men's clothes, boys' suits, hats, shoes, you name it, on all 3 floors of that building.
Wow.
And so when I went to open Westfall Coffee Company, I was like, we need to like have a nod to the history of this space.
Sure.
And I had like old newspaper ads and old hand-drawn blueprints from the building in the 30s when they did a renovation. So I pulled elements from all that to create Westfall Coffee Company.
Nice. And who do you appeal to? I mean, other than coffee drinkers, but like, what is your market through Westfall Coffee? Because I look at Westfall from an outsider's perspective, and I see more of a distribution company.
So we're mainly wholesaling to
Okay.
other cafes and restaurants and
Okay,
things
sure.
like that. Now we do retail as well. We sell a lot of retail through the Clay Cup, and we do sell online as well. But basically, Westfall Coffee Company, the mission is to kind of create a gateway for people to like and understand specialty coffee, because
Okay.
specialty coffee can feel very like bougie and
Right.
maybe unreachable or just unrelatable to people
Yeah.
that are used to a Dunkin' or a Folgers or whatever Keurig in the morning.
Sure.
So it's just, we're roasting blends that are very appealing to a lot of people, but it's still specialty coffee. So it's introducing them to specialty coffee in a really like non-threatening way that they can enjoy and understand.
Nice. That's awesome.
So one of the questions I had is, so how do you separate yourself as a coffee business apart from other businesses out there, other coffee businesses?
Like locally?
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, our location specifically gives like the charm and the history, and that's really why I wanted to be downtown, because I grew up hearing about what it was like. And so being in that historical building gives us that atmosphere and that space that's different from other shops. And we really focus on that because we're never going to have a drive-through. We can't in our location, and I really wouldn't want to anyway, because the whole concept was to have people connect with each other. So what sets us apart is it's a little bit more of a slow, relaxed atmosphere. It's not fast food. And again, we're also educating our customers about good coffee and why good coffee is important, why specialty coffee is important. And we've even done some classes with the community too on brew methods and like seed to cup, like understanding the whole process about how coffee is grown till it's brewed. I think that sets us apart.
Nice. That's awesome. So whenever you're working in the Clay Cup, so your work schedule, I think that's really interesting. And I've talked to a lot of people about different ways to approach owner working in the shop itself, and everyone seems to have a different opinion on it. Because I know, especially us just starting out, I feel like crap whenever, someone, maybe let's say a family member comes in and I'm not actively working.
Yeah.
I'm working on something
You probably
else.
feel like you're being lazy or something.
Right, yeah, exactly. So how do you view owners working in their own shop, in their own space?
I think it really depends on where your business is at.
Sure.
I think obviously in the infancy stages, you have to be in there doing the thing.
Right,
And
right.
I was putting in 100 hours a week sometimes when we first opened the Clay Cup. And then there were then after about a year or two, I didn't even have to set foot in there. And I just did some administrative stuff at home, and I had, my kids and stuff like
Sure.
that. But now I've stepped back in and I work full time, I work in the pottery section, so I work in the
Okay.
art section full time. And I think as an owner, at least when you're running a small business, you have to be willing to step in as needed.
Right.
Until you can grow it to the point where you're able to delegate all of
Sure.
that. And I've kind of, like I said, it's ebbed and flowed for
Right.
me.
And how much importance do you stress on having your business being self-sufficient? Like if you were to leave for 2 months, how much importance do you put on the business running itself?
For me, that is important.
For sure.
Because I don't want to have to be there all the time.
Exactly,
And
right.
I want to. Now, that's also the difference between the Clay Cup and Westfall. Clay Cup, it's not really ever going to scale. I'm not going to open a second location.
Sure.
And so it's always going to have that kind of small business feel. Now I can have people that manage it for me that I don't have to be there. But Westfall could scale to the point where I'm just like a silent partner eventually, and I don't have to
Sure.
do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think there's so many variables there.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Way
I
more.
answered. I don't even remember what your question was.
No,
I went on a rant.
Perfect. No, but I was speaking to someone, and they said that they were sitting down to eat, and the restaurant was packed. There was people coming in and out.
Is this at
and-
your establishment?
No, this is
Okay.
totally separate.
Okay.
And the owner walked in, and all the employees were frantic. And the owner did not help out one bit. Okay? And this is basically to say, you guys need to be able to survive if I'm not here. Now, the person who told me this is a good friend of mine, and he agrees with the owner, but it is a very controversial subject, because some people would be like, they're in a rush, man. Just come on, just
Yeah.
help them out.
Like jump on a register or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, again, I just think there's so many variables, and it depends on the type of business and how established it is, and if there are other people in place that are supposed to be handling that, then they're supposed to be handling it. And you
Right.
shouldn't have to walk in and jump in.
Sure.
I haven't worked behind the coffee bar since 2019.
Really?
Yeah, now there have been times where it's been insane, and I'll jump in and say I'll get these soup orders ready or
Sure.
whatever, but I haven't been scheduled for back there. I haven't had to
Wow.
fill in a shift. My manager handles all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think one of the things with starting a business is we don't want to work for somebody else. We don't want to work those long hours, but you end up doing that when
Yeah.
you're starting
Yeah.
the business anyway.
Right. There's that meme I always see. It's do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, yeah, right. You're going to
Yeah.
work 100 hours a week.
It's just going to be vastly different.
Yeah.
So what are some of the struggles that you've seen when you were starting your business?
I think, honestly, downtown is a difficult place to be. I love downtown. Obviously, I love it because I opened my business there. And I was one of the first businesses to really put a foundation down there. Other than Bold was there, and the eye doctor and the cardiologist is there. But I just think that downtown's a destination. People aren't just driving by saying, oh, let's pull over real quick and grab a coffee. People have to plan to come downtown because the only things that are bringing them down there, unless they are intentionally going down there, are like doctor's appointments and the post office. And so figuring out how to get people to want to come down for me specifically, that's a challenge.
Yeah. And it's the people who live in downtown, the apartment buildings, is oftentimes an older demographic who likes their Folgers, who likes,
Right.
the blackest coffee that they can get,
Yeah. They're not necessarily my target market.
Right.
Who
right.
want
And-
to come spend $5-6 on
Exactly.
a specialty coffee drink.
Right. And that's tough
Yeah.
because you have how many? You have 4 or 5 major apartment buildings within a half a mile radius
Yeah.
from your shop that, it's by nature, their market is not of your own. So have you ever brainstormed a way to capture them?
Some of them have come in more for the pottery painting, which is cool.
Okay.
And that's like what also sets my business apart is it's not just a cafe. Like we have this whole creative pottery painting side
Right.
that hits a whole other market of people, but also there's a lot of crossover between our customers. So people coming in to paint pottery, buy coffee, people coming in to buy coffee are like, oh my gosh, what's that in the back? Let me make a reservation.
You're upselling them, yeah.
Yeah, so it works. There's a really good synergy there. So we have gotten some customers from these, residents in downtown to come in and paint pottery. But again, a lot of them I think are also on like fixed incomes and they just don't
Sure.
have the disposable income for that type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Cook, he's starting to renovate some of the places down there, right? And bring more apartments down there, and that should target some of the younger generation, do you think?
Yeah, they're going to be higher end apartments. So I think, and they're going to be right next door. I
Yeah.
think that will be great. A huge addition for downtown and like everything that he has planned for the McCrory's building and his other properties is really neat too. So when that all plays out, it could be years by the time all of his projects are done.
Sure.
The landscape of downtown will look very different.
Yeah, I hope so because I was talking to him and he has really big plans about it. So if it follows through, it could be a vastly different place. But in terms of pottery, I know you're not just into pottery. You're into art. You're into painting, just art in general. How hard is that to incorporate that into your business? Because I know art oftentimes is not the easiest sell, but it's a passion that you have and you chose to incorporate it into your main income, So it's really fascinating. Does it work out? Well, it obviously works out, but what are the ins and outs of it? Is there something that you wish you would have done differently whenever it comes to art, or are you very content of where it is now?
So there's a lot to unpack here.
Right.
When I originally had the vision for the clay cup, I just knew it basically came about because I wanted to pursue being an artist, but I didn't love any of the traditional career paths, which were work in a museum, teach in a public school, or be a, quote, starving artist.
Yeah.
I was like, there has to be a different way.
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
like any of those options.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought of the idea of pairing something creative with a coffee shop, because coffee shops, one, they bring people together. They're a third place. They have repeat customers daily coming in and out, high traffic. So a lot of people to just expose the art to, and hopefully they would want to also participate in the art. So I had that idea a long time ago. And then when I bought Playtime Pottery in 2015 and I turned that business around, I realized, okay, this paint your own pottery concept is very like non-threatening for people that don't feel like they're creative, don't feel like they have any artistic ability, but they can still come in and really enjoy this activity with their family and friends. So it's an awesome like gateway, like artistic gateway into more creative things. So then when I like revisited the idea of like this coffee shop and something creative, I was like, well, this paint your own pottery concept is an awesome like just placeholder until I can have the space to really teach like pottery throwing and stained glass and like really true artisan type classes.
Right.
So it's worked really well to have this paint your own pottery. And we get so many families and like friends and ladies and different groups from like different schools coming in to do it. But again, it's not quite to the full vision that I have for the clay cup. And like, it's not as truly art focused as I want it to be yet. And then there's the whole professional artist side of me that doesn't have anything to do with the clay cup.
Right.
And that is a separate business actually. And just me pursuing my own artwork and licensing it and that kind of thing.
So what are some of the projects you're working on through that?
Well, I don't have anything like super current other than just I consistently make.
Okay.
I'm always painting.
Sure.
And that has really been like where the magic is because a lot of my artwork that has been licensed, like my artwork that I licensed for TJ Maxx in 2018.
Oh, wow.
I painted it in 2016. So, and then I just licensed artwork with, it's called The Lonely Planet. And they licensed one of my paintings for a cover of a travel guide that they just published. And they have millions of followers, but I painted that galaxy painting like 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
So it's the consistency and just putting my artwork out to the world that has led to some pretty cool projects.
So it's more of a brand. You're more of a brand producing a high quality product.
In a way, yeah, I've branded myself.
Sure.
Like I'm kind of the asset.
Right.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've licensed some artwork and I've illustrated children's books. I authored and illustrated a children's book, which is on barnesandnoble.com and target.com. And yeah, that's like really what I'm passionate about is my artwork. I knew like when I opened the coffee shop that I don't want to do that forever.
Right.
And I love it and it served a great purpose. But I know like artwork is like what I really, really want to do.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Aiden and I talk about quite a bit is advertisement. Is that something that you're big on?
Honestly, I've pretty much only ever used social media. I've done a little bit of like local TV stuff in the past. And I'm trying to think if there's been anything else. Not really. And I leveraged Facebook, like I had said earlier on, before it was like super saturated, and that was greatly beneficial. Instagram was huge for a lot of my artwork stuff on my personal Instagram. And the Clay Cup utilizes Instagram and Facebook.
So you've
mainly
kind of grown organically, just making posts on Facebook. You're not really paying for any Google ads or Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how you've grown the last few years doing it. All right. Now, a lot of people nowadays, TikTok's big. I'm sure that you are familiar with it. Are you guys using TikTok for any advertisement for the Clay Cup?
No, I think it might be good like for Westfall and stuff because again, the scalability and like we can sell coffee anywhere in the country. Clay Cup is so like, I mean, we're only going to hit a certain radius of people, you know, that are actually going to drive and come purchase our product. So I don't know. I'm like, there's only so much time for someone to focus on, and it's me, to focus on that type of marketing. And I'd rather be using TikTok for my artwork than for the Clay Cup.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which I have a video that has over 1 million views on my artwork, and some other ones that have some pretty high views. So it's been good in that sense.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best platforms to actually organically advertise because any video that you post can just go viral.
Yeah, at any moment. And you never know when, and you never know how.
Yeah, it's the stupidest stuff that goes viral.
It is.
So I know a lot of people say it's hard to make money in art. You know, that's the big, whenever you're talking about physical art, audible art like music. Money is tight whenever it comes to art. You know, you even see people, you even see artists and bands, you know, touring the U.S. Whenever they get back home, they have to go work their 9 to 5. You know, it's not sufficient, and I'm sure painting and physical art is the same way, but you have found an alternative way to be self-sufficient off of art. Do you want to explain that a little bit? Because it's really interesting, because I always hear a lot of people say, like, you know, I really have a lot of aspirations. I'm an artist at heart, but being an artist will not pay the bills.
Well, I've had some successes, but it's not consistent income, to be honest.
Right.
And that's something like I'm really navigating right now specifically is like, how can I would like to kind of explore selling originals and really pricing them at a place that they deserve because of my skill and how long I've put into developing my skill. So I think I can put a pretty high value on a lot of my artwork. I just have to figure out how to get the right eyes on it. But I think once I'm able to do that, that will be great. But licensing is an awesome way to make some money with your art. And I'm figuring that out too, because there's no like how-to on that.
Right. Now, explain licensing.
So, I mean, it's such a broad range, but for like, from my experience, it's like I have these images that I've already painted and they want to own them so that they can use them on something. And like when I did the project for Sheets, the Sheets art project, and my artwork was on their trucks, like they own that artwork. Yeah. That's theirs. And then they reimburse you and pay you for that. Okay.
And so whenever you license something, how do you, so let's take Sheets for instance. You made a painting and Sheets comes to you and they're like, hey, I want to buy that painting. How do they even see that at first?
Well,
do you send it to them?
The Sheets one's a little bit different because I won a competition with 11 other artists, and so I created that specifically for them. In the other instances, people found me on Etsy.
Okay.
Because I have such a broad range of paintings that if they searched galaxy, or if they searched birthday cake, or if they searched cat with glasses, I'm gonna come up because I have like almost 300 paintings on Etsy, and so they basically found me.
So Etsy is your big platform. Etsy is your go-to platform.
There's already so many people searching on Etsy. And like people looking to buy art and looking to buy products that are like I do note cards and art prints and stuff too. So yeah, Etsy's been really good for me.
Nice.
But
is there any other platforms that you use to launch your projects?
Not really. I do have a Redbubble account, which basically you can upload your painting and then they have over 100 products that people can just go in and order that image on. It's really cool. And you can set your own prices, so you can kind of determine like what your profit margin is.
Nice.
But I don't get a ton of traffic on there. Okay. And my goal is to basically redesign my own site and sell from my own site too, because Etsy fees they're pretty high.
Etsy fees, yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you heard of NFTs before? Have you ever thought of, maybe making one of those with your art?
Okay, so I've heard of them, but I don't think I really understand. I don't know what they are exactly.
Yeah, it's like digital artwork that people sell. It's almost like a stock. It's kind of strange, but people buy them. There's like monkey artwork that people sell for thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yes. I've had people inquire about me selling them as NFTs. Okay. I don't know how to make that happen, but, but I might have to look into it.
Yeah, big money in that.
Yeah.
So going back to the physical location, the coffee shop, have you ever had any staffing issues? That's pretty big now. businesses having staffing issues, people can't find jobs. You don't know really what's true, you know?
I want to say, first of all, that we've had amazing employees. Super blessed in that respect. Never had to fire anybody. And people that are really like invested in the vision and just there to serve our community. And so that's been huge. More recently, it has been a little bit harder to find to find people that are just interested in working and having availability to do that. So yeah.
So going off that, how did COVID affect you?
Oh man, I didn't think we were going to make it, but we did. I mean, the PPP loans and everything are the only reason that we survived.
Wow.
But because, I mean, again, we didn't have a drive-through or anything like that. So our whole business is based on people coming together, which could not happen during that time. We tried like curbside pickup for a while and very like spaced out occupancy inside the building once we were allowed, things like that. But we were able to maintain our employees and everything during that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely an unfortunate time to start a business. I remember there was a guy that started a sub shop, I think, down the street from downtown, and he lasted a couple months. COVID hit, and then he had to shut down.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it was a wild time for sure. And I feel like, too, we're now just starting to feel like back to normal, like revenue-wise.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because people just still weren't really coming out and coming together like until like the last 6 months or the last year even. So
That's crazy.
So it's taken about 3 years to actually see
like,
the
recover.
numbers from 2019. Wow.
yeah.
What about price-wise on the back end? Like, have cost of your products went up since COVID?
Yeah, like paper
Exponentially?
products and stuff.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
a lot. The coffee itself, not too much. But we also, in that time, we switched from like another roastery to roasting it ourselves. So there's that too. But paper products, yeah.
Now, what was it a huge jump with paper products? Because I got into business after COVID, so I have no clue what pre-COVID looked like at all.
Yeah, I mean, I would say some things doubled easily.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you say paper products,
Like our cups, lids.
sure.
So did you have to change your prices?
I've had to adjust prices, yeah. I've adjusted them probably every year since we opened.
Now do customers come in and they're like, wow, this is 30 cents more, you know? Are they pretty open to it?
They're pretty open to it, and they are understanding because, I mean, okay, the price point of like the average ticket sale at a coffee shop is going to be like $9 if they buy a drink
Right.
and a baked good, you know. And now the pottery side skews that a little bit if you look at like my averages, but I mean, people understand. And they're coming into a specialty coffee shop like knowing they're going to spend some money on a drink.
Right.
You know? So thankfully they've been really understanding.
That's good.
Now, do you have a lot of regulars that come in and they're like, you know, we only want to drink your coffee. We don't want to go to Starbucks or Dunkin' or any of the other ones.
Yeah, we do have some extremely loyal customers, which is very heartwarming because like I opened that place and to see people like want to support it and love the product, of course, I love that. We also have a ton of customers that love to hop around to all the shops, and I think that's awesome too. Like, there's plenty of coffee drinkers to go around to all the shops, and each shop is unique and different, has, you know, cold drinks at each place, and they're all doing things so well, but in a different way. So it all makes me happy.
Yeah.
Anyone coming through my door makes me happy.
So are you like thinking of new drinks to add every month or every week or?
So we try to keep a relatively limited menu because otherwise it's just overwhelming. And we try to keep our drinks very coffee focused. So we don't do frozen drinks or anything like that, which keeps it limited to begin with. We do feature a few drinks every month. So things will rotate like seasonally. Right now we're featuring one employee a week. So they pick their favorite iced drink that goes on our
Nice.
feature menu for the week. We highlight them on social media. People love people on social media. That is
Yes.
like
Yeah.
such a key thing.
It's bizarre, but it works.
So they just love like the personal connection of it. And so we've done like the employee highlights. We do it in the spring and we do it in the fall. So we do iced drinks in the spring, we do hot drinks in the fall. And then we've also done it with customers. So like we handpicked like 5 of our super loyal regular customers, which we would love to highlight more of them, but
Sure.
there aren't enough weeks in the year to do that.
Yeah.
And then we highlighted them on social media, put their favorite drinks on the feature menu. But that's kind of how we work our drinks.
Nice. And so that exposure works for you guys.
It does, yeah.
Okay. So whenever you, let's say, introduce a new drink, your main focus to launch it is to expose it through social media, or do you have any specific rule set that you follow? Because I know if we introduce a new product, first thing we're doing is taking it on TV, getting eyes on it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know what that looks like for you guys.
It varies. I don't have like an exact method.
Sure. And do you guys even
and-
come out with drinks regularly, or?
We do,
Because it's hard
like
to.
sometimes we just like feature things that are seasonal, and then usually the feature menu might have like one new drink on it or something. But again, we're really focused on the coffee itself. So like we have a pour over menu that is like, it's single origin coffees that we're offering, and that changes. So like those are the types of drinks that are changing. It's not necessarily like the flavored sugary drinks,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Sure.
So we might have like a single origin Ethiopian coffee, and we might have like a Mexican coffee or something.
Very interesting.
And those rotate seasonally because we're only getting small amounts of them, and that's more like how our menu works.
Right.
As opposed to like, here's this one drink we're going to have forever. We don't really do that as much.
Okay.
So our menu boards stay the same
Sure.
for a long time.
And I personally, I like that, because let's say I'm in there and I'm buying the same drink every month and it changes, you
Yeah.
know. Oh, well, we came out with a new one. But I came in here to
Yeah.
get the one before,
Very
Yeah.
specific
You
with
know.
their coffee.
Oh, they
Yeah,
are
right.
so specific. And I think so our foundational menu, it stays the same. And then those feature drinks do rotate. But a lot of them, again, they're seasonal. So it's like we make a homemade pumpkin sauce in the fall and
Sure.
make our pumpkin lattes with it. So that obviously is going to roll
So you
off.
know what to expect.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we do strawberry mochas in, February and March and things like that. So
Sure.
yeah.
So it kind of just rides itself. And
So when back to your question about how we market that or launch that, I mean, we will post about hey, these are the drinks that are on the feature menu this month, but it's not a huge to do because again, it's not necessarily a permanent item on our menu
Right.
forever. If that makes sense. More just an update, hey, this is what we have for
a
this
reminder.
month.
Sure.
Now, do you take advantage of McDonald's, for example? The Shamrock Shakes are huge around in March, right? Do you take advantage of, hey, let's make our own Shamrock Shake or Shamrock Coffee?
I don't want to copy off of McDonald's. Okay, so there will be trendy flavors that
Right.
happen, and Starbucks has this lavender cold foam right now that everyone is going bonkers over. But it's we have been able to make lavender cold foam forever.
Yeah,
so
right.
and then I don't want to just post about it now because then it looks like we're copying Starbucks. So
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
people have been ordering this for weeks and
Yeah.
months. So yeah, I don't want to look like a copycat
Right.
because I'm we've been doing that already. They copied us, no.
So what separates your market from Starbucks market or Dunkin's market?
One, specialty coffee.
Sure.
2, locally owned and operated. 3, we know you by name. It's
Right.
that personal connection
Right.
that we're making with people that, I'm not saying that doesn't happen at those places. Like people going to Starbucks every day. Yeah, you're going to get to know the baristas at your local Starbucks.
Sure.
But like, that is like our mission is to, when someone walks in the door and they're coming in once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Hey, how are you? How are your kids? How'd that interview go?
Right.
And do you want your regular drink
Sure.
today? You know,
That's powerful.
It's coffee shops are a very non-threatening place for people to feel like they belong to something.
Right.
And that is powerful, and that is something that has been part of my mission all along. So it's really that personal impact and like connection.
So
If you take anything from this podcast, that right there.
Yeah. Right.
So when you were starting out and you're, building this business, was it just jump in, to the deep end and kind of learn what I need to learn or figure it out or fail? Or did you have a mentor along the way?
I didn't. Well, okay. I can't say I didn't have a mentor. I grew up in a family full of entrepreneurs. So like my dad, who's not with us anymore, but he was self-employed like my whole life. And my grandparents were all self-employed, and my siblings all have businesses or multiple businesses. And
Wow.
so like I'm surrounded by kind of that mindset and people just like thinking that way.
Right.
So I had, like, my siblings have been wonderful sounding boards and helped me with advice and things like that this whole time. So technical mentor, no, but yes at the same time. And when I went to open the Clay Cup, I didn't know anything about coffee, but I already started renovating the building. And then I was like, I should probably learn about coffee now.
That's funny.
So our roaster at the time, they did all the trainings and everything. So like I went and I learned everything I needed to know. And a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, you put the cart before the horse. But at the same time, it was like, I needed to seize that opportunity to get that
Right.
building and get that started.
Right.
I knew I could learn everything else in the meantime. And it worked out.
That's funny because that sounds like how we started out. We renovated for 8 months, and I learned how to make pizza 2 weeks before we opened.
Like you probably like dialed in your recipes
Right,
and like
exactly.
figured out your dough and
Right.
like the proofing and everything.
Yeah, it was very. I could make a very loose pizza, but 2 weeks before we officially opened, day one is where the magic happened.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how that is how people kickstart their business. One thing I wanted to talk about is a lot of. It seems like now you were original in the area. Clay Cup's been around for a while now, and
7 years.
7 years. And it seems like recently a lot of coffee shops are popping up. Why do you think that is? Is it trendy? Is it that popular that there's a demand for more coffee shops? Because I think last summer, 3 or 4 popped
Opened.
up in the area? It's insane.
Yeah, I think there's layers to this answer. First one is the broadest answer, which is people romanticize the idea of owning a little cafe.
Sure.
It's like one of those like hallmark like
Right.
ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are wonderful aspects to owning a cafe, but it's also hard work and
Right.
it's a business. So there's that. I also think there was a need for more. Like those third places where people can connect and feel like they belong to something, that's vitally important to a community. And I think it's those things combined, and then just like seeing other shops be successful and thinking, hey, I could open that and I could do that too.
Sure.
Why not?
You
So I
even
think
see
it's
it
a
on
combination of all of that.
Yeah, you even see it on a corporate scale. I mean, McDonald's seem to have changed their look in the past, I want to say 5 years, to more of a cafe vibe. And
It's a very
really
trendy
fascinating.
thing. The whole thing is trendy.
Yes,
And so, I mean, trends only last for so long
Sure.
too. So
sure. So I'm glad I got your input on it because you guys weren't a product of the trend. You know, you've been there before the trend even started.
Thank you for recognizing that.
So that's really interesting to see. Where do you see it going?
The clay cup or the trend?
Coffee in general. Where do you see coffee in general going?
Oh, man.
The younger generation, are they drinking coffee?
Now that can be a little controversial.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a lot of people trying to move away from coffee. But I think at the same time, like both of those, like the coffee market's still growing. It's not like it's like really taking away from that. But then there's this whole other group of people that are like, no caffeine and let's make mushroom coffee and all that, which is fine. But when it comes to like specialty coffee, that's why specialty coffee is important, because commodity coffee is sold for so cheap, like Starbucks coffee, Folgers, etc., sold for so cheap from these farmers that it is not sustainable. And coffee will no longer exist if people don't start paying better prices for it. And so specialty coffee really ensures that the farmers and the people involved in the process of growing and processing the coffee are taken care of adequately so that it is sustainable and they can continue to do that.
It's a domino effect.
Educating people on this is critical to the future of coffee in general.
Right.
Because a lot of these farmers could go grow another crop for way more money. So why would they stick with coffee if they're not making enough money?
Right. So that's interesting.
So educating people is really important, which is also part of the mission of what we're doing.
Do you have any advice for people that, I know you probably don't want to give your secrets up to anybody that wants to start a coffee, but any advice to people that are maybe thinking about starting a coffee shop? Like, what are some of the steps that you have to take from beginning to end?
I mean, I think location is so important. And like, I have so much respect for the Green Bean, and they're so smart, and they have, you know, the drive-thrus and everything. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like, that is not my desire for my business. And so I can look at their business and think they're doing such an incredible job, and their location's incredible. So a drive-through for coffee is so smart because you can move so many more people through. And like the price point of a coffee is like, what, $4 to $8 or something. So you need to sell a lot of it to make it profitable. So location. And if you don't have a drive-through, you don't want that speed of a business, like that fast-paced business, you need to pair it with something else. You need to pair it with like more restaurant style, like more food, or you need to pair it with like the one in Huntington, I'm forgetting the name, they have a laundromat with their coffee shop. So all the students can go do their laundry and then drink coffee while they're waiting for it.
I think
standing stone. So smart. So like if you just have to have like something to kind of increase the price point and boost your revenue. If you're not going to be able to move that many people through.
I've even seen like there's cat cafes out there where, you know, you can adopt a cat and get coffee or, you know.
Yeah. So like that's the thing. Like you have to have more food or pair it with something else if you're not able to move that many people through a drive-through in a day. That's the best piece of advice I can give.
Interesting.
I do want to know where you got the name Heritage Pizza.
Oh, okay, sure. Heritage Pizza. So Heritage Pizza, I was looking for a name and I was racking my brain. I'm an amputee. We were going to call it Peg Legger's Pizza.
Oh my gosh.
That was one of the names.
The branding could have been so cool for that. I know. Open another shop.
Yeah, I know. I'd want to.
I'll help you design your brand.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. I'd love to see it happen, but we went through Peg Legger's Pizza. We went through Crane's Pizza. I mean, I feel like using your last name for a pizza shop is so worn out. Yeah, right.
Stereotypical.
Yeah, but you know, we're only a couple blocks away from Heritage Plaza.
Right.
And I thought it would be very fitting to name it Heritage Pizza. And subconsciously, whenever you say Heritage Pizza, you might think of Heritage Plaza. And whenever someone says Heritage Plaza, you might subconsciously think of Heritage Pizza. Yeah.
Smart.
So that's how we landed on Heritage Pizza.
When
and
you
I haven't
say
looked back.
we, who's we?
Can
I interview you now? Let's go.
I always say we. It trips a lot of people up. It is I, but whenever I say we,
You're like bouncing ideas off of people
exactly,
that you're close
right.
to, right?
And
Okay.
I'm a believer in there is no such thing as a purely 100% original idea. You know, because if I have an idea,
I mean,
might-
except for the clay cup. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
No, yeah. But if I have an idea and I go to Ty and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, it sounds really good. I'd do this. And I come to you and I'm like, hey, I have a really good idea. What about this and this? And you're like, I like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So in that sense, it is a we.
Yeah. I feel like it's, I don't know. I don't like taking credit.
Yeah.
But I think we is a more inclusive,
For sure.
you know.
I just wasn't sure if you did actually have like a partner in the business or something like that.
It's just me because
Yeah.
you know my friends have helped me out so much along the way that I couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah, I very much relate to using the term we because like, for instance, Lindsay, who's the manager at the coffee shop, and then Ethan, who now runs Westfall Coffee
Yes.
Company, they've been with me since the beginning, and I
Right.
could not have done any of it without
yeah.
them. And so I always say like we
Yeah.
too, because
It's more comfortable,
I could probably walk away and they would take it and run.
Yeah.
They're more my boss at this point.
which is great. Which is something great to say because I think it was Jeff Bezos. I think he said, I only hire people who tell me what to do rather than having to tell them what to do, you know, because your business just runs so much more fluently.
And you have to, as a business owner, you have to be willing to let go of like certain elements of control too to make that happen. Like
Right.
you can't be micromanaging,
It
or
gets
else
tough.
it's not ever going to grow.
Especially
because-
if you want to dive into other businesses like your artwork, for example. You
Yeah.
can't be spending all your time on, the clay
and
cup
like
stuff.
micromanaging
Yeah.
things. Like you have to be able to like relinquish some control.
And just trust somebody else
Yes.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now finding the right people, that could be tricky, but
Sure.
yeah, that's definitely an important, like the leadership side of everything is really interesting to talk about
And
too.
it gets really hard not to micromanage, but at the same time, it really gets hard to manage people. You know, so it's almost a power struggle with yourself. But I mean, I feel like through the pizza shop, we've gotten the most success out of respect. You know, I don't demand respect from anyone. I never demand respect from anyone. I will always show you respect, and I hope in return you show me respect.
I always think it's like you lead by example.
Right,
And so
exactly.
if you're in it with them, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go be brewing coffee next to you,
Sure,
because again,
right.
I already said like
Yeah,
I haven't had to do that. But knowing that like you take them seriously and you value them and you want to invest in them too and help them grow in whatever skill set they are looking to grow in.
Right.
That's going to benefit them for whatever they do next.
Which is really interesting because I've talked to business owners who have the complete opposite take on it. They say, I rather have 6 different employees in a month where they come on and they leave, and I don't have to invest more time into them because they're cheap and the turnover is high, you know? And they can get them for cheap. But that's why their turnover is so high.
Right, right.
But he said in the same breath, like, well, everyone's looking for a job, you know?
Yeah. But you're only as good as your employees that you have. You know,
Right.
if you don't have good employees
Yeah.
that are actually going
And,
to go
like,
above and beyond.
For my business and yours too, like they are the face of my business.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is who the customer is interacting with.
Right.
And if that is a poor experience, the customer could have a great cup of coffee and a poor experience with the employee, and they're not going to come back. They could have an amazing experience with the employee and an okay cup of coffee, and they're going to come back.
Right.
So you have to like weigh that out. like, one, our product is awesome, but like if you have those employees that really go above and beyond and have that heart of service, it's going to impact your business tremendously in a positive way.
It is the experience, because talking about chains like Olive Garden, I like Olive Garden, but if it was a hole in the wall, same exact food, same taste, same quality, everything, except it was really dingy. There was dirt in the corners, and the staff looked really run down. I don't think I'd go, because I'm not only buying a meal or a cup of coffee, I'm buying an experience, and if you opened up a business right next to, this is a good way to prove it. If you opened a business right next to yourself, served the same exact cup of coffee, had different staff, and it was just filthy. Everything was filthy, but the cup was the same,
Yeah,
no one would go.
Right.
Absolutely,
there's all these
no one
different
would go.
elements that like play into that. There's like the cleanliness, the vibe, the interaction with the employees, the product itself, and like not all of them have to be perfect, but the important ones need to be up there for people to want to return.
For sure.
So
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic.
When did you open your pizza shop?
Opened a year and 4 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just passed the year mark.
How many hours a week are you working?
I think last time I calculated it was close to 55.
Oh, that's not horrible.
No, it's not horrible.
Yeah. How many employees do you have?
We have 6.
Okay. That's great.
Well, one is in college, so realistically we have 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they part-time? Do you have any full-time?
Everyone's part-time.
Okay.
But I am there every day. I don't mind being there every day. A day off to me is taking an evening off, or taking a morning off.
I remember those days.
Yeah, right. But it's not too bad. I mean, if it was a job I had to work for like an hourly wage,
Yeah.
it'd be a lot different.
But this is like your thing.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
You created it.
It's my child.
You have like the mission and the vision.
Right.
And yeah, the purpose.
It gets frustrating, sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's days that you wake up and one of your tenants are like, "Hey, my toilet's leaking."
Yeah, it's definitely
Like,
one of those things.
what do I do?
Yeah, we got to
like,
talk
come
about your
on.
businesses, Ty.
Yeah.
We haven't even ventured there.
Yeah,
Next episode.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where you're like, did I pick the right thing? Do I actually want to be a landlord?
How many rentals do you have?
I have 17 units right now.
Are they
so-
residential?
Yep, all residential, yeah.
That's amazing.
And I work full-time jobs, so it's, after work I go and renovate these places. A lot of late nights, 80-hour weeks.
How did you get started? Like, how did you get your first property?
I basically saved up money for a good bit, and I read a book in college called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was basically about, getting rentals and how real estate's so important. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
So I saved up money, I bought my first place, and kind of got hooked from there.
Put a lot of sweat equity into it?
Yeah, that's the biggest part is, you're not going to make money, especially in Altoona, if you're not, doing it yourself.
Doing a lot of the work yourself. Yeah. Very cool.
It's tough too, because you even look at even like people's first house, you see the gap rising and rising of the price of the housing market and minimum wage. Well, not even minimum wage, just average wage, it's separating. And so I think the hardest part is people to buy that first house,
Right.
really take that deep dive.
Got to get those foreclosures.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Because whenever you get the first house, it's like, well, you can refinance it, and it's a rolling ball from there.
Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis, and this is for any business. Is, I want to learn
Oh,
everything.
that's such a good.
Yeah,
I've never heard that term,
Yeah.
but it's so true.
yeah.
People get stuck
Well-
in, hey, I want to learn everything there is about this business before I
Oh
start.
my
it."
gosh, if I would have done that, I never would have opened the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Well,
the thing that
I
stops
like had
everybody.
this sense of urgency, like you have to do this now, or
Right.
there's not going to be any properties left. And actually,
Right.
that was true.
Yeah,
But yeah, analysis paralysis.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to jump in the deep end and take the risk and just learn as you go.
Yeah, no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
but it's scary, but it's very true.
Are you glad you didn't go to school?
Very
in
glad.
college.
I'm very glad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggled through school, like high school, just not wanting to be there. I couldn't even imagine having to go to college. Like, I feel like now that I've been out of high school for 3 years, I feel like if I were to revisit it, it would be a completely different story. But I think I was just in such a long stretch in high school, just constantly wanting to get out and being on my own and doing my own thing. Now that I've been out for so long, I feel like I could take a stab at it, but
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed at all.
I think it's cool to see this wave of people realize like they don't need a degree
Right.
to do what they really want to do.
Yeah.
And they also don't need $80,000 of debt,
Right.
which is going to severely cripple them when they do want to do something.
Yeah.
So I just think that's cool.
Yeah, the newer generation is definitely branching out into social media is big. Hey, I want to be a social media influencer. I want to do drop shipping or something else. I can make money online now. I don't have to go spend 4 or 6 years at a
Yeah.
college. And
Right.
It's very interesting, but a lot of kids are going to college because they're breaking that generational gap. Well, I'm the first kid in my family to go to college. They want to make that statement, but
Yeah.
whenever they go for something in the medical field and then end up working a 9-to-5 office job that has nothing to do with the medical field, that's whenever you really feel it.
Or they go and get a business degree and then
work at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I mean, nothing wrong with a business degree for
No.
sure, but in a lot of cases, I feel like experience is going to be your best teacher.
Right, exactly.
And again, that debt is so crippling.
I was
I
talking-
never would have been able to do
Oh,
anything if
yeah.
I had student loans.
I was talking to, I don't know who I was talking to, but they went to Penn State Altoona, and they were taking an entrepreneur class, or it might have been Penn State, Maine, one of the Penn States in the area, and they were taking an entrepreneurship class. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome, kind of, but who's your professor? And he's like, oh, it's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, neat. Well, what's he own? I don't think he owns anything. I think he just teaches the class.
Just teaching the theory
It's
about
like,
it.
no
Well,
way.
that goes back to the whole artist thing.
Yeah,
like-
right.
Why
Art classes.
go teach art if you
In a
want to be an
college
artist?
level. Yeah,
I
right.
mean, there's nothing wrong with teaching, but like if you really want to do
Right.
art, go do art. If you really want to be in business, go do business.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And people taking business degrees, I ask everyone taking business degrees, well, what are you going to do with it afterwards? What are you going to do out of college? Well, I'm hoping to work for a company, That's more of like the business management side. But if you're going to school for business, it's baffling to me. It's mind-boggling.
I think there is a shift too, though, in companies that are hiring, not necessarily requiring degrees and looking more at experience. And I think that is so valuable.
Right.
Because again, you could have a 4-year student graduating with a business degree that has no experience, or say you want to be done with a pizza shop in 4 years and then
Right.
you want to go work for another company, and they look at you and they say, hey, look, this guy, he opened up his own shop, he had employees, he managed everything, like
Right.
he knows.
Right. And like I spent less than a full college tuition on the shop starting it up,
Right.
And
So that's your risk. There's
That's
a
the
risk
risk.
either way.
you
There's a risk in putting all that money into a degree. There's a risk in putting all that money into a business.
Right.
Take your pick.
And I honestly think it's riskier going to college. Honest to God, I think it's riskier to going to college.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that, hey, I'm going to get out of school and have the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000
Right.
in debt. Nobody
Yeah.
told me this when I went to college,
It's scary too.
And I think, like, as a 17 or 18-year-old, you don't have an idea of what that actually means. Like, you can look at that number and be like, oh, but when you're actually, like, living on your own and you have that debt and then you want to go do something else, you can't because you're so tied to needing a certain amount of income to pay off your debt.
Yeah.
But you can't go take another risk because you already took your risk on your degree.
I heard you talking about classes earlier in the segment. Did you go to college?
I did 3 semesters and dropped out.
That's what I thought you said. Okay. Sounds.
Yeah.
So what semesters did you do?
I took a lot of gen eds. I only had like
Okay.
1 or 2 drawing
Sure.
classes.
Do you remember anything from the drawing classes? Or?
My professor looked at me and said, "Where did you learn to draw like that?"
Really? Wow.
So, did I
How-
learn? I mean, I'm mainly self-taught.
Sure. How much of art do you think is natural and how much of it do you think is taught?
Art is so subjective.
Right.
That I feel like I can't answer that, because you can have someone who can draw something that looks like a photograph. And that, I feel like that is a skill that is developed.
Sure.
But then there's certain things that's like the eye for balance and color and all those other elements. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a tough question.